Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where we recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 3rd of November 2023. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So obviously we've all heard this by now, or you've all heard this by now, but Sam Bankman-Fried, or SBF, has been found guilty on a lot of the charges brought against him. I think he was found not guilty on a bunch of them, but I think there was like 7 charges or something where he was found guilty by the jurors, and sentencing is set for, I believe, March 28th next year. Now, the maximum sentencing is, I think, up to 120 years in prison. I don't think he's going to get the maximum, of course. From my understanding, I don't think most people ever get the maximum. But I think that he'll get at least decades in prison for obviously all the crimes that he has committed here. And I think there's even another trial at some point going to be had around other crimes that are being brought, or other charges, I should say, that are being brought against him here. Now, of course, you know, all of us in the crypto community are pretty happy with this result. For a while there, we actually thought that SBF would get away with this, or at least there was a narrative that SBF would get away with this and he'd just get away with a slap on the wrist because it's a financial crimes, and usually with financial crimes, these things you know, tend to get swept under the rug. But I think that maybe that's true for kind of a lot of the TradFi system. But when you have someone like SBF who, one, was involved in crypto, right, which is already like enemy number one right now for the Democrats, or at least for some high-ranking Democrats, right? Then you have two, SBF himself was very visible, and he wasn't like just hiding behind his own company, or hiding behind the system itself. He was very, very public, right? He was on Twitter, he was tweeting, you know, he was still tweeting once FTX collapsed and all that sorts of stuff, and he had a cult of personality around him. So it was very, very different. I mean, I never thought that he was going to get away with anything, to be honest, and I really did believe that he would get obviously found guilty, because he is guilty. I mean, that's obvious to anyone, right? I don't think you needed a trial for that, but obviously we had a trial because it's guilty until proven it's innocent until proven guilty, I should say. But sometimes that's not the case in crypto, right? But the result is that, yeah, he'll be going to prison for decades. We won't know the exact amount of time until the sentencing on March 28th. But until then, I believe he's in prison or in jail. There's kind of technical terms here until that date, basically. And then, yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy because I saw some kind of people speculating about how much time he would get on Twitter. Some people said 30 to 40 years would be. I mean, it's really up to the judge how much time they want to give SBF here. But, you know, they can go up all the way up to 120 years. But as I said, it's not going to be that long. But even, you know, 30 to 40 years, SBF is what, 30 years old now? He won't get out until he's 60 or 70 years old. That's his whole life gone, guys. Like, I mean, by the time you're 60 or 70 years old, like, especially coming out of prison after that, I mean, what life is he going to have after that? Nothing. So I think that there's people calling for blood out there saying, you know, he should get the absolute maximum, whatever. And I'm like, I think, I don't disagree with that, but I think it's irrelevant. At the end of the day, like, if he gets 30, 40 years or 120 years, he's probably going to die in prison, to be honest, right? I mean, his health wasn't exactly the best outside of prison. I doubt it's going to get any better in prison. But when you kind of think about it like that, I think the justice has definitely been served here. He ruined a lot of people's lives. He screwed over so many different companies within the ecosystem. He fooled a lot of people. He made a lot of people look like complete idiots when, to be fair, a lot of the people who simped for him are complete idiots. And I hope that they have taken the last, I guess, like year at least to reflect on all of this, right? And to reflect on their involvement in this and to basically not get involved with actors like this again. I mean, I'm not holding my breath because unfortunately, people have short memories on this, and I feel like I'm already seeing a couple of, I guess, cults of personality forming again within crypto around these newish actors, which is kind of, it's not near as big as what SBF and Do Kwon and Alex Mashinsky and other people like that were, but still, like, cults of personality, guys, I mean, I think by now it should be obvious to all of us, they're not the way to go. They're not the way to go because it's essentially people have flaws, right? And deifying people and forming a cult around them, it's failed so many times within crypto. And I think that, you know, as much as I guess this gets talked about a lot, I don't think it's appreciated that with Bitcoin, I think Satoshi realized early on that if this technology, Bitcoin, succeeded, which it obviously has to this point, succeeded at, I guess, like accruing a lot of value, he would be deified as a god. And he is. It's just that he's not around for it, right? Satoshi is regarded as a god among a lot of people people in crypto, especially the Bitcoiners, but he's not around, to bathe in that, to take advantage of that, to essentially, be there for people to deify. It's more, Satoshi's more of an idea at this point than a person, right? Which I think is pretty cool. And then you have, I guess, in the Ethereum ecosystem, with Vitalik, people have tried to deify him, people have tried to form cult of personalities around him, but I think he's rejected that at every step of the way, and he's remained humble, and just honestly, Vitalik has remained just incredibly steadfast in everything as time has gone on within crypto, and especially as Ethereum has grown, that I think because he's rejected that, he hasn't been deified like these other people, whereas, SBF and the 3AC people and Do Kwon and others, they all bathed in this. They loved the attention, right? They love the cult of personalities around them, and they not only bathed in it, but they cultivated it as well. Especially Do Kwon. I think Do Kwon is the quintessential example. He was worse than SBF at cultivating a cult around him, because if you guys were around back then, I'm not sure, I'm assuming most of you were around back when Terra was extremely popular, right? Because Luna had mooned in price, the UST market cap was mooning, and Do Kwon was literally regarded as the guy who could do no wrong, and had this massive cult following behind him. It was absolutely disgusting, guys. Like, I saw this, I'm like, holy shit, this is really, really bad. Like, these people are treating Do Kwon like he's literally a god and he can do no wrong, and it wasn't just like the random people you see on crypto Twitter hiding behind Anon profile pictures. It was also a lot of people in this industry that you would think knew better, right? And the same was true for simping for SBF and others out there. And you guys know that for the longest time, I used to call out these actors all the time, saying that I just generally avoid people who have egos, who try to cultivate cults of personality around them, who bathe in it. And I think that served me quite well over the years. And it's a major reason why I've stuck around in Ethereum, because I think within the Ethereum core ecosystem, and I'm not talking necessarily the projects built on top of Ethereum, even though a lot of them fall into this bucket, but the core of Ethereum, to me, there isn't really any cults of personality there. There may be kind of some that try to form here and there around projects, I guess, like Daniel Sesta with the Frog Nation stuff, which wasn't just Ethereum. I mean, that was like Phantom as well. And don't even get me started on Andre Condre, who actually in 2020 was deified by a lot of the Ethereum community, and I even pushed back on that back then. I said to some of my friends who were like obsessed with him because he was launching all these products and everyone was making so much money. Obviously, everyone was really happy about it. I said to them back then, I'm like, guys, this dude isn't Jesus. Can we stop deifying him? And I got pushback from that on some really close Ethereum friends. And then, of course, things blew up. And obviously, since then, Andre's fall from grace has been quite a sight to behold. But, even back then, I don't like to brag, but I was right about it. And I think that, as I said, the rule of thumb is that anyone who has an ego, anyone who has a cult of personality around them and bathes in it, anyone can have a cult of personality around them. But if they bathe in it, if they nurture it, if they try to make it as big as possible, that's to be avoided in my opinion. And sometimes I talk to some friends about this, and they say, oh, don't you have a cult personality around you, since you're like one of the I guess like top people in Ethereum that people know, essentially, or one of the most visible people in Ethereum? And I'm like, oh, maybe I do have some limited kind of thing of that, but I don't embrace it, right? I never try to kind of ensure people look up to me or revere me as a god or deify me or anything like that. I don't want that. I've never wanted that. If I wanted that, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And I guess like a big part of what I do is just provide the Daily Gwei for free, because I don't want to monetize it. I don't want people kind of forming a cult around me and expecting me to, I don't know, pump some token or whatever. And generally, I only do what I do because I'm super passionate about Ethereum and I'm super passionate about seeing it succeed. But yeah, I mean, we've all seen this time and time again within crypto, just the deification of personalities, of people, and it never ends well. And yeah, I guess back to the SBF stuff, I'm just glad that he has gotten justice here, and I'm going to be glad to see all the others get justice as well. I mean, Do Kwon obviously got arrested and he's facing charges. Alex Mashinsky is facing some really bad charges, actually. I think as bad as SBF, if not worse, which means that he's probably going to go to prison for many decades as well. And he's older. I don't know how old he is, but I guess like if I'm just thinking off the top of my head from the way he looks, I think he's got to be in his 40s at least, right? Maybe even in his 50s. I'm not sure. But if he gets the same time SBF does, yeah, he's going to be in prison until he probably dies as well. As I said, Do Kwon, which is sad because Do Kwon has a newborn daughter that was actually born during the, I guess, like whole bull market, and he named her Luna. It's just such a sad story, right? Like, just crazy to me that someone would risk all that and would kind of, I guess, throw all that away just for a cult of personality around them. And then, I mean, the Three Arrows Capital guys, look, Suzu got arrested, but I feel like that was just to get him to cooperate with the bankruptcy proceedings. I don't know if him and Carl are actually going to end up in prison for a long time or anything like that. Then there's Barry Silbert, who's facing a lot of charges. I mean, it kind of is gross when you think about it, the amount of people that have been arrested in crypto that were, I guess, like considered the kings of crypto at the time. But it also gives me hope. It gives me hope that we have a brighter future ahead of us within the crypto ecosystem, within the Ethereum ecosystem, and we can focus on the things that actually matter. And at the end of the day, I think that the number one thing that actually matters in crypto is onboarding as many people as possible. That is still the goal, guys. And we have still the vast majority of the planet left to onboard. And I'm not talking about getting them to buy our bags. Like, I don't want people to do that. What I'm talking about is getting them on chain, using the products, getting value out of the products. And I feel like we have billions. I mean, we have over 8 billion people on the planet, right? And the majority of those have never touched crypto. And we have a mission to make sure that we build better systems and we build better products and services and we build really cool things for these people to want to use and want to actually get value out of, instead of just building the same old kind of like Ponzi's, cults around people that results in ruin every single time. But anyway, that's a bit of a long-winded rant there about this, but I figured it was worth kind of bringing this stuff up again and kind of rehashing it in the light of the fact that SBF was found guilty today, or yesterday, I guess you could say. So thank goodness for that. I'm sure we're all happy about that. But anyway, moving on to some Ethereum-related news. I saw this tweet from Mario Haval today where he said, "Tonight's experiment, running Ethereum on a hacked PlayStation 4. So far, it syncs." And you can see the screenshot here of what he's doing. He's obviously jailbroken a PlayStation 4 console here and then just run an Ethereum full node on it. And I mean, why wouldn't it work? Of course it would work. Ethereum full nodes can be run on some of the lowest powered hardware, and I don't think the PS4 is that low powered. I mean, it is obviously the last gen PlayStation console with the PS5 now out, but still, hacking it, running a full node on a PS4 is exactly what Ethereum is all about. Like, this is cypherpunk stuff, guys. Like, this is not kind of like something that should be just looked at as a neat little project. I think this is something that the Ethereum community has worked hard towards for a very long time now, is maintaining the, I guess, like chain through running nodes on things like PS4s, on Raspberry Pis, on whatever you want, on low-powered devices. That is at the heart and the core of what Ethereum is. And for a long time, there was a narrative that the Bitcoin maximalists said that no one can run an Ethereum full node. And I quote-tweeted this tweet and I said, well, Ethereum maxis went, F you, PS4 full node engage, right? But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that, like, the fact that they were saying this obviously speaks to the fact that they're just incredibly ignorant, because at the end of the day, everyone can run an Ethereum full node as long as they have some low-powered hardware and an internet connection to do it, right? Like, as I said, you can run it on Raspberry Pis, you can run it on Rock 5B boards, you can run it on just consumer hardware, you can run it in data centers, you can run it anywhere. It doesn't matter. That's the whole point, is that you can run a full node anywhere. You can verify the chain for yourself, which is really fundamentally the most important thing in crypto to me, right? Because at the end of the day, like, I get the trade-off here where, because the chain is so easy to run, it means that the scalability is limited at layer 1. But the point is that by allowing anyone to verify the chain, it allows them to not have to trust anyone. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do with blockchains is disintermediate trust, right? We're trying to remove trust. We're trying to create trustless systems where you don't need to trust anyone else in the system. You can run the full node yourself and then trust that your full node is telling you the truth, right? So I think that from that perspective, that's why we want this. And that's why we're scaling via layers. Because if you do everything at layer 1, you lose this ability, right? You do have light clients, which can do like most of this, but it won't ever give you like 100% a guarantee that you're kind of like on the right chain, right? You haven't 100% verified everything for yourself. So needing beefy hardware to run full nodes is just not an option in the Ethereum ecosystem. So that's exactly why it's built the way it is there. But yeah, I just figured it was worth highlighting this. I thought this was very, very cool. I had an idea for a project a while ago. I don't know if I if I mentioned this on the refuel, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But I wanted to put a Raspberry Pi in a Game Boy Advance shell and then run an Ethereum full node on that, and then have it just as like a display on my desk or something like that, with the screen obviously lighting up with the command line there. But maybe I'll get around to that eventually. But I guess I wonder if you could hack some other hardware out there. I'm sure you could, to run Ethereum full nodes on, maybe even run it on an iPhone or something like that. Maybe one day, we'll have to see. But yeah, you can go check out this tweet for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, on to some staking chat. So ETHWave has a great tweet out today where they showed basically the distribution between node operators versus validators. So they've done a 1 to 10 scale here. So for every one node operator, you can say that they're running 10 validators here, or I guess like to the power of 10 validators. So when you look at Rocket Pool, you can see that for every one node operator, the average validators is 11.38, which is obviously extremely decentralized here because Rocket Pool has thousands of node operators. And instead of just like a small handful, right? And then you make your way down the list, and really it gets worse from there. Obviously, Swell and Stakewise are working towards having more node operators, but if you look at Swell, it's one node operator per 191 validators. For Stakewise, it's one node operator versus 545 validators. And then you can make your way down to Lido, of course. You know, Lido, everyone's favorite staking service provider, where you can see here that for every one node operator controls 7,659 validators. Now, I've talked about this a lot in the past about how I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that this distribution is like this, but it's not about, I think, good versus bad. It's about good versus better, right? So what's better than one node operator running 7,000 validators? Well, of course, Rocket Pool is better. One node operator running 11 validators, right? And thousands of node operators, I should say, running a few validators here and there, rather than whatever it is in Lido today, 36 node operators running thousands of validators each, right? So as I've said before, I think Lido is good, is fine. I mean, I think that the way they do things is fine. I don't think their market share is a good thing. I think they should come down. But it's good versus better. I don't think it's good versus bad, because when you look at like a bad, not necessarily bad, because it's hard to say what's a bad staking service provider versus what's a good one, because people will say, oh, well, if it's super centralized, then it's bad. Like, for example, if it's a centralized exchange, then it's bad. But if a centralized exchange only has like 3 to 4% network share, then is it bad? No, I don't think it's bad, because the centralized exchange is obviously offering a product to its users to stake with them, and they're obviously taking a fee from that. But they're doing it all for their users, and they're only 3 to 4% of the network. So I don't think that's actually bad. But then people can say, well, Coinbase has 14% of the network. That's bad. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, that is actually bad, because Coinbase is a single entity. Coinbase has unilateral control over all those validators as a single entity. So yeah, I would say that is bad. So it really is a nuanced thing here. You can't say something is good or bad just based on, I guess like vibes and feels. It has to be based on reality and based on fact and based on the nuance, which I've discussed plenty of times on the review before, so I'm not going to rehash the discussions there, but I just thought this was a really great way to visualize just how decentralized and distributed Rocket Pool is compared to these other providers out here. Now, don't get me wrong, I obviously Swell and Stakewise, as I mentioned, have plans to decentralize out this further and become better here, right? But Lido as well has those plans, but at the same time, they don't have the same plans that the other ones do. Like Lido wants to keep onboarding node operators, but they're only going to do it slowly and in small chunks at a time. Whereas something like Rocket Pool has onboarded many node operators in a short period of time, and will continue to do that. Swell and Stakewise will only get more decentralized from here as they onboard more node operators, which I think is very cool. Now, I will say one thing, and I will caveat this with one big thing I think it's a huge asterisk here. You're going to have node operators that are the same node operator, I should say, on different services. So for example, I'm a node operator on Rocket Pool, but I'm also planning to be a node operator on Stakewise, and maybe one day on Swell as well, right? I'm not planning to be a node operator for Lido. I mean, I don't think that they would want that responsibility anyway. But in terms of Rocket Pool and Swell, so I would be the same node operator across these two different networks, right? So it's kind of this argument of like unique node operator versus the same node operator. And I think that unless people actually self-report that, you're not going to know what the share is. You're not going to know how many node operators for Rocket Pool are also node operators for Swell, for example. You'll know some of them because some of them will be companies and stuff like that, but generally you're not going to, you're not going to really know, right? And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but that is the one huge asterisk here, where the node operator pool generally is going to be limited. It's not like we're going to have a million node operators to choose from. I think at most we're probably going to have potentially at kind of like maturity tens of thousands of node operators to choose from, but we're not going to have millions, definitely not. And even tens of thousands is going to require I guess like a longer term outlook, and as I said, at maturity to reach that. But I think that's okay, because at the end of the day, if those tens of thousands are a mixture of companies, enterprises, non-profit foundations, individuals, teams, small groups of people, that is what we want. Because an expressive Ethereum ecosystem, an expressive Ethereum staking ecosystem, and a distributed and diverse one, especially geographically distributed, is what we're after. We're not after perfect, guys. Like, the perfect is obviously the aim, and that's like what we want to get to, but we're not after it. We know in reality we're never going to get a perfect distribution of stake. We're not going to get a perfect distribution of client diversity and stuff like that. But if we can get it as close to perfect as possible, that is the goal. And that's what we're working towards, and that's what we're doing with bringing online all these other staking service providers, with making it easier for people to stake, making it cheaper for people to stake, and making sure that we keep Ethereum as decentralized as possible there. Now, I did have another thing I wanted to talk about with regards to staking, which was this report from GSR today, which is a very, very great report, honestly, about the various kind of like staking entities on the Ethereum network and just staking in general on Ethereum. I suggest you go give this a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. But they also have a nice little table summary here of the different liquid staking providers that you can see. They've got all the popular ones listed here, with stuff such as when they launched on mainnet, how much stake they control, what the fee is, how many node operators they have, what the reward accrual structure is for their LST, and other notes as well. And I really like the other notes section because it does highlight the things that aren't immediately obvious from the other kind of columns here. So you can see, for example, in the Lido column for other nodes, it says the largest liquid staking provider, while Lido's stake is decently well diversified amongst 37 operators, and it continues to improve on this front, Lido's underdeveloped governance poses some concerns, right? It brings up the governance concerns here. And then in the rock pool section, they have the most decentralized provider, but sometimes new RETH cannot be minted when operator capacity is reached, as there is no permissioned operators to delegate to, which is those scaling issues that I've talked about before, which are being addressed in Rocket Pool as well. And then there's notes on all these other providers here. But yeah, I'm not going to spend too long on this. I just wanted to highlight it for you guys because it is very comprehensive and it's got sources and links to go read more about it. So you can definitely go check this blog post out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Octant, which is a project that I've mentioned on the Refuel before, that are staking 100,000 ETH on the Beacon chain here, and basically distributing the staked ETH rewards to public goods or projects within the crypto space here, had their first allocation for Epoch 1 here. So they've distributed a total of 258.39 ETH to various projects, and they've listed the projects here. Among the recipients were projects like the Protocol Guild and Rotkey, along with Giveth and Tor, and a bunch of others, which you can read about in the YouTube description below. I'll link this thread for you, but just wanted to highlight that first kind of distribution has been completed here. And this is really cool because I remember mentioning this project to you guys and saying that I thought it was just really awesome that this project was basically spun out of the Golem Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, Golem was this project, or is this project, they're still around, but they raised a lot of ETH back in, I think, 2016, when ETH was worth a lot less than it is today. They had hundreds of thousands of ETH that they raised, and a lot of it was just sitting there doing nothing. And obviously, when staking went live, they wanted to stake it, but then they decided, why don't we stake it and do something different than just stake and keep the rewards for ourselves? Why not create this kind of project called Octant here, stake the ETH, and then use the token. I think the GNT, the Golem Network token, is used to vote in these distributions, to distribute the rewards to different projects within the ecosystem, to just give back to the ecosystem that obviously gave them so much with the ETH raise that they got there, which I think is awesome. I think more projects should be doing this. But yeah, I mean, I think Octant is the biggest right now, but there are other projects out there that obviously have donated, their own tokens to things like the Protocol Guild, stuff like that. I just love to see more of it, really. And I think we will see more of it as time goes on here. But you can go give this thread a read, check out all the projects that were part of this distribution. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, Abhishek here from the Polygon Ventures team shared a little table here showing that right now there is a battle between Polygon and I guess like Optimism for new chains launching using their technology. So obviously you guys know that Optimism has their OP stack, Polygon has the Polygon CDK, and you can see here what it currently looks like. So it's basically neck and neck with the OP stack in terms of upcoming projects on the OP stack and upcoming projects on the Polygon CDK. And some of the most popular ones that I've talked about on the review before are things like Astar, which is a popular project in Japan. They're building on Polygon CDK. There's Kanto, which is basically converting from a Cosmos layer 1 to Polygon's technology. Then within the OP stack ecosystem, you have Lyra, which has been deployed on Arbitrum and Optimism and started off as an Optimism project, but now are becoming their own chain, and a bunch of other ones here as well, which you can read. I'll link this in the YouTube description below. But, you know, as I've said before, I do want to caveat this by saying that I think that a lot of these chains, it's going to be hard for them to find success, because I think that there's going to be like obviously a handful of really successful L2s and then a long tail of ones that are kind of battling it out to be successful, and maybe they are successful in their own respective niches and stuff like that. But really the real winner becomes the project that onboards the most of these chains, because it forms a network effect around them. Now, the OP stack had a head start here, but the Polygon CDK seems to be catching up very, very quickly here, which is great to see. And honestly, it's great to see because of the competition. Like, I don't want it just being all OP stack chains, obviously. I want it being Polygon chains. I want it being, you know, Arbitrum chains as well, Arbitrum Orbit chains. I want it being ZK Sync chains. I want everyone competing with each other, and I want us to get the best result possible, because no one wins if there's a monopoly. And I actually don't think that there's a way for there to be a monopoly in the layer 2 space, just because of the fact that the opportunity is so large and there's so many different teams already working within it. But eventually you're going to have like, let's just say 5 to 10 years time, you're going to know who the obvious kind of big winners are. I think right now, obviously there are some winners, but it's not obvious that they're going to be winners forever. I think Arbitrum is obviously has a massive lead right now with Arbitrum 1, but if you said to me, oh, would you bet on Arbitrum 1 still being the number 1 layer 2 in 5 years? I would not take that bet. And anyone who took that bet is crazy. Like, that is not a bet I would take. Not because I don't think Arbitrum is amazing and awesome and all of that, right? I do, along with these other teams as well. But it's way too early to call a winner for the layer 2 ecosystem, especially because the technology is still so young as well. So, yeah. But anyway, you can go check out this table for yourself. I'll link it in the YouTube description below for you to do so. All right, a big update for MetaMask today. So they have announced that they're the first wallet to enable privacy-preserving security alerts with Blockade. So they say here, our latest feature simulates transactions and signatures directly in your wallet to alert you about malicious requests before you sign them. So you can enable this in the settings experimental kind of section of MetaMask if you're still using MetaMask, of course. I know a lot of people have switched off recently, but the reason why I wanted to bring this up and the reason why this is really cool is because transaction simulation is something that some other wallets do, and there are other kind of apps that you can use today to do it. What it does is it basically shows you exactly what the transaction would do if you were to sign it. And because of that, it allows you to flag things like, you know, this looks deceptive, or this is what the transaction is actually going to do. This is what you're doing here. You're transferring funds to this address, or you're approving a token approval to this address, and so on and so forth, right? So it is a very welcome security feature for MetaMask, and I hope they keep adding more of these, because as I've said before, while MetaMask is secure as a wallet, and because it's been around for so long, it's got a lot of Lindy behind it, it's lacking a lot of security features to protect people from signing things that they shouldn't be signing. And I mean, as you guys know from a few weeks ago when I got phished, I'm not going to say the sole reason was because MetaMask didn't have any protections in place, but maybe if MetaMask did have some protections in place, I wouldn't have, I showed Rabby Wallet has. I may not have gotten phished there. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was my fault totally because I wasn't paying attention. But if there are roadblocks in place, I think that catches a lot of these kind of things and makes it so that people don't get wrecked, especially because MetaMask is used by so many people already, and it's such a popular wallet. These things are definitely needed and welcomed here. So yeah, you can go check this out for yourself. We'll link it in the YouTube description below. But I think on that note, that's going to be it for today. So thank everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.